Welcome to the Heaven on Earth podcast, a world where you study the story you were born into and redesign it into the story you choose. A world where you can have heaven on earth right here, right now, no matter the past. For me, heaven on earth is a holistic experience, leading with the heart, engaging with mind, body, and spirit. It's mindful, fostering calm and secure attachments. As we rise into consciousness, it's an earthly journey where we sensually embrace dynamic living.
Hello, my heaven on earth people, mi gente del cielo en la tierra. Hello, hello, hello. It's been a minute. I took a break after the book is out. We launched it on March 15th, you all, and it was amazing. It's been amazing. We're just getting the best feedback. And, it is, even though I wrote it in a way that feels easy to read, the concepts are intense. So pull out your notebook, get your highlighter, hit Amazon and buy it, and you'll see it. There's a lot of codes in there for you. There's a lot of learnings, and especially for this time. And today is Monday, April 8th. It is the day of the eclipse, and I planned on doing this podcast during the eclipse day for this reason. We are going to talk today about the eclipse, but in terms of its symbolic, spiritual, metaphorical meaning in our lives as humans and for humanity, as always, because the Heaven on Earth podcast is about that. It's about the meaning of who we are here as humans and what we are here to do to love our humanity. Love our humanity. And you know that I talk about the small is in the all and the all is in the small. And so how we love ourselves as individuals is how it plays out in how we love our humanity. So I bring all of the pieces of me together. So let's start there. For those of you who don't know me, and maybe this is your first time listening to the Heaven on Earth podcast, I am Claudia Cauterucci, and I am a colorful person, which is how I identify, because I believe in the colorfulness of humanity in terms of my expressiveness, my beat, my rhythm, my sensations. I am colorful. And I'm also, my day job is that I'm a psychotherapist. I've been a psychotherapist for over 23 years here in Washington, D.C. I've had my private practice downtown. Now I'm doing all of my sessions virtually, and I just love my people. I love the people that I work with. I love them. I love being witness to their expansion and their growth, and that's what I'm about. I'm also the creator of the dynamic re-evolution curriculum. And what is that? It is a series of programs, classes, workshops, whatever you want to call it, that I've created where I teach. I am not a psychotherapist in the dynamic re-evolution curriculum, but I do bring all of my multidimensionality, all of my gifts, my abilities, my knowledge, my wisdom, my wounds that I've garnished over the years, and I use them in dynamic re-evolution. And so part of the dynamic re-evolution curriculum is the dynamic meditation method, which is where you start with yourself, with your own healing. It is a self-healing modality where I gathered the best of what I know in terms of meditation, in terms of self-inquiry, in terms of exercises, And so many of you have already transformed your lives using the dynamic meditation method, but that is all about you and healing you and curating your future and cleaning up on your past. And the dynamic meditation method has as its tagline, heal yourself, heal the planet. And I really believe in that. If you start with you, you are causing a ripple all over the people around you, your families, etc., etc. And then I do a monthly roundtable, the second Saturday of every month. And again, this is open to everyone. It's not like psychotherapy private practice. It's not. It's not one-on-one. This is open to everyone who wants healing, evolution, growth, expansion, self-reflection, self-inquiry. Okay, so the wealth from within, tagline, inner journey, outer abundance, because that's how we loop the inner journey and the outer world. We loop it all together. It's a constant loop. We meet every Saturday of the month. And it's a group of us, and we talk about our journeys. And mainly, we talk about prosperity. And prosperity in a multidimensional, multilingual way, where we address what it means to be a prosperous human, emotionally, spiritually, financially, materially. In all ways, we talk about psychologically how to be a prosperous human. And lastly is the empath leader training. Hey, like the book says. And the empath leader training is a 12-week training that I do for folks who have been on the healing journey for a while. And obviously for empaths, for people who identify as empaths. And it's intense. All my stuff is intensive. We dig in, we do deep dives. We are vibrantly committed to creating a new identity, to redesigning who we are, and to choose who we are. So I'm in my third cohort of the Empath Leader Training. I've written the book. It's amazing, the folks who come to this. I'm blessed. I'm the one who's gifted. And so in the Empath Leader Training, our tagline is the times are calling for you. And I created the Empath Leader Training for exactly this time on planet Earth, this moment, because we are in high gear in terms of evolution. We are in high gear, which leads me to the last part of the Dynamic Re-Evolution curriculum, which is this podcast, you all, Heaven on Earth. And Heaven on Earth podcast is for everyone. Everyone out there who's interested in creating the type of life they choose, they design, and they curate here on Heaven on Earth. I know it sounds religious, and for some of you, you might take it as religious. That's fine. It's how it resonates for you. My purpose is to share my belief, and maybe this resonates with you, that we can create the life that we want. We can create a harmonious way of living today, right now, April 8th, 2024, here on planet Earth, and that we can join others, teach others, guide others, go arm in arm with others about creating that type of life. How to live heaven today here on Earth. So that is the Dynamic Re-Evolution community. That is the Dynamic Re-Evolution conviction. That is the Dynamic Re-Evolution curriculum. Okay, now that you know me, let's start the podcast. And just know that I do read notes, and I only read notes. I write them on scrap paper. As all my information is coming to me, write it down. And it's only to keep me within the confines of certain hours. Otherwise, I will go and go and go because I keep getting hits as I'm talking. So this keeps me in shape, and it keeps me with limits. And I always have my cafecito. As you know, I drink my coffee, and sometimes there's helicopters. I'm by the airport. Sometimes my dog barks. All of that is part of being beautifully, perfectly imperfect. So let's start. So today's episode is about the eclipse, and it's about the metaphor of the eclipse, and it's about talking about the terms that often. And on my website, you'll find a section that's called Cloud Speak, and you'll find all the terms that I use in all of my programs that I've coined that have really been a way for people to understand things more in just a more simple, broken down way. And today we're just going to talk about, how our wounds become our gifts. That's a real constant for me. The one-on-one fraction, remember the 1 over -1, which is, 1 over +1 equals 1 or equals oneness, right? 1 over +1 equals 1. But when the top fraction is 1 and our bottom fraction is -1, the whole thing equals -1. So what are we driving? What's our driver? What's our fuel source? What's our -1? We're going to talk about that in so many ways today. Let's begin. So the whole idea about an eclipse is that for a few moments, there's a shadow that crosses over the sun. Almost like the idea that darkness befalls on us. Darkness covers us for a few minutes of the day. And some of you know that one way to look at it is fearfully, that things are going to happen that will bring darkness upon us. Let's start there. And let's start it as the metaphor, that these minutes of going into the dark, which is part of the experience of being a human. And in some literature or in some spiritual scripture, we talk about it as the dark night of the soul, because there are periods in our lives that we feel a certain type of darkness descend upon us, on our families, on our marriages, where suffering rises up. We're going to talk about the ways, the impact that the dark has on us. Let's look at some ways that it has affected us, impacted us. So when darkness descends upon us, whether it's because we feel not in love, someone in our family is sick, COVID, whether it's happening to the planet and to humanity, wars, famine, scarcity, we know how it shows up. It scares us. That's one way it impacts us. It scares us. If all of a sudden electricity went out, it would scare us. It has these moments of scaring us, especially when it happens suddenly. We certainly know that March 2020, that's what began to happen all over humanity, all over the planet. What are some of the options? We huddle. We huddle. We go down. We get afraid. We panic maybe. What I invite us to do in these moments, what most healers or most light workers invite for us to do, is to go inside, right? If I'm in a closet and all of a sudden the door locks and the lights go out, it's going to be scary. It's going to be scary. So what are my options when there is an eclipse over our life journey? Try to find light. Try to find a candle. We try to find a flashlight. Try to find help. We inquire, what's happening? Why did the lights go out? We ask questions about the darkness. And as you can see, this is already a metaphor. I invite us to get quiet, to go inside, really keep beating the drum on the power of the inner journey, of not being afraid of us to go inside. I know it feels scary to face some of our fears, our obstacles, our patterns, but this is all the more reason, because in our external world, there will be eclipses. there are moments in our external world that we have dark times, that the dark night of the soul descends upon us like an eclipse. Where do we have to go but inside? So, psychotherapy as healers in meditation in all of the wisdom traditions, the task is to go inside and to be less and less afraid of the inner journey, because we know that the inner journey has an impact on the outer journey. Another option is, of course, what I'm saying right now is that we use it. We use it, and the metaphor of the chrysalis, and the chrysalis is the moment where the caterpillar goes into the cocoon, cocoons itself, and the chrysalis is when the caterpillar, get this, actually dissolves, becomes this goo. It breaks down into this goo in order to, when it emerges, it becomes this beautiful butterfly. I mean, centuries of using this metaphor. The darkness doesn't always have to be a scary place to be. Once we breathe, once we sit, once we get still, we can use the dark night of the soul, the eclipse, in order to create something new and something beautiful. I personally believe, and that happened to me during these last 4 years after COVID. And I've had many, many, many moments in my life, which is why I actually became a psychotherapist, where I needed psychotherapy, where I needed healing, where I needed to be the chrysalis, where I had to dissolve everything and become just pure goo in order to reemerge and rebirth into something new. And as you know, the invitation to heaven on earth is to create that for humanity, starting with you. Talk about some of the basics, and that's how we roll. We love to study. It's one of our sexy places is that we study. We study ourselves, we study life, we study books, we study cooking, we study recipes, we study mythology, we love to study. So when you're listening to these podcasts, definitely flow, have a walk, drive in the car listening, but also take the moment to write things down. So let's go through the basics that I'm going to talk about over and over and over, because repetition works and because you're going to learn through repetition. So remember that we in life are constantly creating paths. El camino, remember my last episode, El camino, the paths, the journey to new experiences, and experiences create pathways. I'm a great believer in experiences. Buddha was a great experiencer. The more we experience and learn from our experiences, the more wisdom we have. Punto. Don't diss your experiences if you're learning from them. If you keep repeating them over and over, that's another path. So what I want you to think of every experience that we've ever had, right? These are the basics. Every experience has at its bottom fraction, as its base, a set of ingredients that create a dominant vibration. For those of you who might not resonate with the word vibration, a dominant energy. Every experience has at the bottom a set of ingredients that creates a dominant energy or vibration. In the last podcast, I talked about frequency. The ingredients are how we're thinking, how we are feeling, where we are setting our gaze, because that determines what we feel and what we think about, and where we are energetically, what vibration it puts us in. Super easy. There's certain music that immediately uplifts our vibration or our energy. There's certain people, oh my gosh, there's people who make me feel so alive. There's music There's movies, there's events, there's books that make me feel alive as a dominant vibration. So when we become aware or conscious of our vibration, it is a way for those of you who have spiritual inclinations to determine, to hear, to intuit what our higher self, our higher soul, God, angelic frequencies, the quantum field. Choose your language, because I work multidimensionally. Whatever resonates with you, it's the way, a really easy way that I like to describe it, it's the way that the invisible speaks to us. Whatever is invisible out there but is real is speaking to us. That is how we get messaging, and all of us get messaging. But we've got to become aware of how that happens, how that we are experiencing it in our bodies. Okay, we are constantly coexisting with lower frequencies like depression, fear, grief, hate, and all of us have it. All of us. We're constantly experiencing higher vibrations like love, like peace, like laughter, like intimacy. And we're constantly all day long doing a dance between those frequencies. And in the last episode, I talked about it in terms of timelines. We jump around in timelines. We jump around in energetic frequencies, in energetic vibrations. And the more aware we become, the more we can actually guide ourselves to the frequencies we want. We cannot have an experience that we don't agree to. So the way that we make an agreement, or the way we give consent, is by focusing on it. That's how we give consent to that energetic frequency. Okay, now I'm going to make a little bit of a caveat here. This is particularly difficult, check it out, in 3 cases: when we're empaths, when we're children, and when we're unconscious or unaware. Because what it means is that all of these frequencies are coming at us. All of these energies, all of these vibrations are coming at us. And we basically end up focusing on them, whether it be through Instagram, Facebook, movies, documentaries, music, yelling in our house. We end up focusing on them because we don't believe that we can choose. Certainly as children, we didn't know that. As empaths, we're just picking up so much in the environment when we're untrained, which is why I do a training. When we're untrained empaths, we will put our focus on the most dominant vibration. So will children, and so will people who are unconscious or unaware. Just the importance of consciousness. Do you understand this? And let me tell you something. Fear is an extremely dominant vibration. So is narcissism. If there's a dominant vibration, we will give it focus. And then we are creating that experience because it becomes our internal dominant vibration. So the 3 cases where it's really hard to choose is the untrained empath, children, and if we are unaware and unconscious. How do the people who master their environments, how do they do it? The spiritual masters, the people who are on a high spiritual path or are self-healing, how do they do it? Well, they do exactly that. They can master their vibration. They can hold, what I like to say, we become miracle workers when we can hold an energetic frequency no matter what's happening. So even if it's chaotic around here, and we have trained ourselves to, these are the basics, to hold a dominant vibration. And that comes from internal prowess, by the way. When we can hold it, we actually become miracle workers, because then we begin to create the experiences that we have outside of ourselves. And that's where the inner journey and outer journey loop. Okay. But if it's spastic and we have no idea how to hold our vibrations, our dominant vibrations, no matter what's happening outside of us, well, then it becomes chaotic and it leads us into lower frequencies. In the video game of life, the way that I like to teach teens, and I raised my son teaching him this way in the video game of life, right? The perceptual field is what matters, where we decide to look. And as a Claudism, I call that shift your gaze. Where are you looking? Because wherever you decide to look, wherever you decide to dock your vibration, that's the experience that you will create on planet Earth and as part of your life journey. We good? We good on some of the basics? Okay, and rewind if you need to write all of that down. So let's talk about the backdrop. Let's talk about the history of humanity just a little bit. Just a tad, not a lot. I do talk about it every single time, though, because we need to be aware of who we've been as humans, so that right now, where we stand right now, we can choose who we want to be on planet Earth and how we want to be forming, shaping, curating, and designing our humanity and our human life. A way that we've done this for centuries, and I talked about it in the last episode, is that we've done it from contrast. Contrast is just such a soft and beautiful and easy way that Esther Hicks talks about it. It's such a beautiful and gentle and almost neutral way to talk about basically duality. So all that contrast means, just picture a stick, right? Is on one end is what we want, and on the other end is what we don't want. On one end is, let's say, a high positive experience, and on the other end is a negative experience. It's just contrast. And the way that contrast serves us is that it serves us towards expansion, because at every step on the way, as a human, but as humanity, we can start discerning what we want and what we don't. The way that humanity has done it historically is that we've seen the contrast, let's say war, famine, abuse, domination, oppression, in all of its forms, torture, demeaning. We have been living on that end of the stick. That's the way that humanity has been living. So I want you to picture, for those of you who are just listening to the audio, picture the stick. On one end is that heavy, negative, intense frequency that's making us demean and oppress and kill each other off as a humanity. But as we have these moments, I want you to just picture like glittering little moments, these awakenings where the light comes in through the darkness. As we've become more aware as humans through meditation, through philosophers, through historians, through spiritual masters who have mastered their vibrations, their energetic frequency, little by little, humanity has been moving. Let's say if this is 50%, one part of the stick, and the other is 50%, we have been moving all the way until right now, where we are in evolution is we are at 51%. We have crossed over onto the other side of the stick through consciousness and awareness. And right now, it is all over the planet. Humanity is coming awake. And why is that happening? Because of the internet, because of the age of information, because we are getting information at lightning speed. And after COVID, we've been getting information about healing modalities, YouTube University, Instagram University, TikTok University. We have learned about post-traumatic stress disorder. There is no excuse because we get all of this information for free now. We get it for free. We have teachers all over YouTube University telling us, including what I teach, how to heal, how to start moving from the world that we do not want into the world, into 51%, then 52, then 53. And some of it along the way requires eclipses and the dark night of the soul so that we can say, you know what? I don't want this anymore. Right? Remember, in 12-step programs, the definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing over and over, beating the drum on the things that we don't want and expecting different results. So we got to start moving into consciousness and awareness and move. Let's start tilting it into 51%. Check it out. How does that impact? Why does you healing you helps us heal humanity and heal the planet? Is because the moment that one of us joins, has alignment in our mind, how we think, our body, what we're experiencing, moving that trauma out, our soul, our spirit, and our emotions, all of our psychology is coherent and congruent and aligned. The power of one person who is aligned completely trumps 100 people that are not. Alignment is intense. That's why leaders who are aligned create such a massive, massive ripple. The leaders that know themselves, hello, empath leader, the leaders that know themselves, mind, body, emotion, psychology, when they're aligned, those are the people that are creating massive impact. Be the master of your soul, the pilot of your soul, and the ripple on the planet. That is the first quote on my webpage. So we are moving over in this moment in evolution after COVID, after 2020. We are moving it into 51% because the planet and humanity is begging to no longer do it the way we did, which was through war, subjugation, power for power's sake. All the isms are on this side. And so we want to move into a dominant vibration of healing, of loving oneself, of loving our humanity. That's not easy. We get it. That's our no duh moment. It's not easy. But get this. This is not easy. Famine, not enough, war, killing each other, sex trade, slavery, all of that is worse. So yes, let's do this work. Let's do the work of moving into the 51%, 52%, where we become aligned human beings. Now, part of my impetus, my encouragement, my need, my craving to do this podcast is to say, hey, y'all, if you did not do the work from 2020 to now, if you did not dig deep, if you did not do some trauma rising, which is one of the words that I use a lot, we have trauma. Humanity has trauma. We have complex trauma. We have simple trauma. We have woundedness. If you did not do that internal deep dive work since 2020, it's going to start hitting now in 2024 big time. It is going to start hitting the planet big time. And the thing is, all of you have noticed already, things are moving quickly, 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 quickly. Things are moving so fast. If you've been unhappy in your marriage, it's going to hit hard right now. If you've been confused, it's going to hit hard right now. These are the eclipses. These are the personal eclipses and the human eclipses that are going to start happening right now. And I want to say, do not be discouraged. It is our moment in the darkness to look for light. It is our chrysalis. Do not be discouraged, but just know it's going to start hitting. So let's do the work. Let's get in there. Let's dig. Let's do it with each other because it's easier to do transformation and liberation and rebirth and renaissance together. It's just better to find some guides along the way. We talked about this. Okay, next section. Ready? Title, underline it. The world today, which is what I just led us up to. On a daily basis right now, massive changes, significant changes. Why? Because the systems right over here, in contrast, on this part, on the part of humanity that's been super hard, the part that we don't want, there's some of the people who've really benefited from that. Of course, they've had powers for power's sake, but it's been unsustainable. So it's going to self-implode, and it's self-imploding. But what we're seeing is the old systems, the old traditions are holding. Of course they are. They're holding strong. But that's just being human. You know how sometimes we'll put our heads in the sand, we'll turtle, we'll go in. We don't want to see parts of ourselves. That's called what I call amputations, or not looking at our shadow side, at our eclipses, not going for the dark night of the soul. But what happens is those call outs get louder and louder and louder, and it's going to get louder out on planet Earth. Mama Earth is going to start waking us up. Because sometimes it needs to get louder, just like mom at home. Pick up the socks, pick up the socks, pick up the socks, until she's screaming, pick up the socks. So let's get it before it becomes screaming and screaming and screaming. Okay, same thing. You call it past trauma or past karma, use whatever. The idea is the cycles and the patterns of karmic looping, of traumatic looping, will keep showing up until we give it attention. As everything psychological, until we give the sides of ourselves attention that need care, they will keep calling out through addictions, through depressions, through anxieties, through panic. We will discover them. We will discover them. Focusing matters. Wherever we shift our gaze, it matters more than ever. So in this time, 2024, as you guys know, it's going to get politically crazy. Only because old systems are wanting to hang on, new systems are wanting to emerge. Right? As I always say, the birthing process is messy. When we have babies, when we have new creations, when we're trying to create, it can get messy. We can get paint all over ourselves as we're painting our masterpieces. It gets messy, but it's really important. So contrast right now, those dualities are boiling over. We get to choose. That's what comes forth when we hit eclipses. What do we want to choose? Where do we want to shift our gaze? It becomes a space. I want you to think of duality. I want you to think of contrast as a space that offers us a moment of choice. If something is happening in your life, so let's get real. If your marriage, if your home, if your love life, financial life feels chaotic, if your psychological life, it is providing you a space to choose. Where do you want to look? What do you want to create? It is a moment of conscious choice. And today in 2024, there is no excuse to not become conscious because we have access. Everything is based on the basics, vibrational agreement. So let me give you some examples. So if I turn on the TV, if I turn on the radio, and something comes on that bothers me, upsets me, I have a moment to choose there. Does this make me feel upset? I can choose to look at something that I want, to hear something that I want, to choose who I want to be in that moment. Now, it can also be, for example, if I see pictures of war or pictures of famine or pictures of sex trade, if I see something in my home life, I can choose my dominant vibration. One way to do it is by shifting my gaze, for sure. Another way to do it is by saying, okay, I am going to experience this and choose and determine my dominant vibration around it. For example, sometimes my son makes fun of me because I will watch things on narcissistic cults because I'm trying to understand it. Sometimes I'll watch a documentary on a serial killer because I'm trying to understand it. Because it is out of creating and choosing a dominant vibration of what is my bottom fraction? Am I watching this and it just makes me afraid and panic, and which creates just more disarray and more chaos? If that's what's going to happen in my lower dominant vibration and my bottom fraction, I shift my gaze. Period. If this is going to make me more afraid and more panicked or more depressed, and that's what I'm going to choose as my dominant vibration, I will shift my gaze. If I'm watching this and getting creative, innovative ideas, if, for example, I'm walking my dog and I see that it's polluted and I'm like, oh, next time I'm going to bring a trash bag. If I get creative, innovative, remember the chrysalis? If I create something new from watching, from observing contrast, if I can find compassion, love, a peaceful approach, a new idea as to how to save, which happens all the time. When there's a wave of negativity, there's always a wave of positivity. Just know that is part of human history. There's a wave of care. And if you can hold your dominant vibration through care, then we're already shifting. If I can see parts of myself, I can bring back my shadow. If I can bring back my amputations and do it with care and look at my behavior and look at my addiction with love, care, compassion, kindness to myself, then I'm already doing it. I'm already choosing to shift. I'm already choosing to up level. Do you understand this? What is my dominant vibration? How am I thinking about it? How am I feeling about it? These are the questions. What am I choosing to do as I look at this thing that is uncomfortable? Whether that be in politics, whether it be in your home, whether it be in your marriage, whether it be your child. How am I holding my child? What is my gaze saying about my child? What is my gaze saying when I look in the mirror, when I look at myself? What is my dominant vibration? And the moment I begin to ask that, the moment I am becoming aware, a conscious and aware human. We make a contract, we make agreements. If something scares me in politics or out there, and I shake hands with it and I give consent for it to give me panic, it is me who's giving consent. It is me who's giving energetic consent to this. Okay, remember the three: the untrained empath, the child, and the unaware human, the unconscious human, doesn't know to give consent and therefore are easily victimized. Okay, so we can teach our children, we can train the empath, and the human can become aware. We have options. So let's talk about them. Basically, what's happening is that we're in it like this human traffic jam. Right now, 2024 is a traffic jam. Your homes, your marriages feels like a traffic jam. Your head feels confused. What's going on? Who am I to be, right? One of the ways to start is to say, all right, I need to find ways to stop the fear. You all, especially before September, especially before October hits us. Right? There are ways to calm our central nervous system, to start choosing higher level thinking, to start becoming aware of how we are feeling. The options are endless. The modalities are endless. There's such amazing people on the internet right now teaching. The holistic psychologist, the attachment nerd, Dr. Ramani about narcissism. There is just so many people out there teaching right now. They're amazing. Dr. Shafali, Esther Perel, Gabor Mate, just amazing people out there teaching. The empath leader, I'm going to put myself right in there because there's people doing amazing things and it's all free on the internet. It's free. How to calm our central nervous system, how to choose our thoughts. We have no excuse. All right, let's talk about the how. That's our next category. That's the state of the world. And it's the state of the world right now, before September. Okay? So how? I'm looking at you. And if you're on audio, I'm speaking to you. It starts with you. It all starts with you. Peace begins with you. Harmony begins with you. Love begins with you. Caring begins with you. Clarity begins with you. If your household is confused, if your marriage is confused, start with you. Empieza contigo. Empieza contigo. Start with you. Come into alignment. Commit. Say, I will come into alignment first. If my child is struggling, take time away and come into alignment first. If you're having an affair and you're feeling like you're leading a double life for whatever reason, for addictions, for whatever reason, come into alignment first. Remember, when there is an eclipse where all of a sudden something goes dark, ask, hey, what happened? Why did it go dark? How do I work the darkness? How do I make this something I can learn from? Or, which is what most humanity does, when we're in low vibration, or just be panicked as you're in the dark. Just be panicked. I remember once when I was younger, I think I was 13, and I was in Cartagena. I was in Colombia, where my mom's from, and I got stuck. I got stuck with other people in my hotel elevator. And I was going down to the pool, so I had a book with me, and I was in flip-flops and my bathing suit, and we got stuck. And my gosh, talk about an eclipse. That can be a very, 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 very scary experience. And I remember feeling afraid, and I could feel the energy in the elevator. Like, this is a perfect example. And I remember just deciding that I would sit on the floor. And now I know that that was one of the ways that I grounded myself. I sat on the floor of the elevator, and I knew it looked weird. But I knew, now I know, I was grounding. I was earthing. And I pulled out my book, and I read. And the adults were trying to manage it. And that was one of the ways that I know now that I was just calming myself, that I was saying it's going to be okay. See what books can do. Books are amazing. There's a bunch of you empaths out there. There's a bunch of you humans that as teenagers and as children use books to expand, use books to heal, use books to calm yourself. See, lots of modalities, lots of options. What are you going to do when you have moments of eclipse, dark night of the soul? So it starts with you. And remember, one person who decides to align spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, and mentally. And let me give you a word. The word is momentum. Momentum. Because it gathers momentum one way or another. If you begin to panic, everyone else begins to panic. Your household panics, humanity panics. If you decide, I'm going to breathe, I'm going to calm, I'm going to ground. As I'm in this elevator, I am rippling out calm, because we generate contagion through fear, through rage, through hate. We are contagious. Predators are contagious. Spiritual masters are contagious. A happy mom in a home is contagious. An unhappy parent, a frowny parent, a yelling parent is contagious. Our electromagnetic fields are contagious. It gathers momentum one way or another. Let's talk about the eclipse. So sometimes I talk about Mercury. I think maybe some of you have seen my post about it. Gosh, it garnished so many views when I was talking about the way I approach Mercury in retrograde. The way I approach Mercury in retrograde is to say, get the data. Don't be afraid of it. Get the data from it. I say that to women who are PMSing. Don't dismiss it. Don't dismiss a woman who's PMSing and has high emotions or volatility. Actually understand what is the message in the high emotions, in the tears. Get the data from Mercury in retrograde. Get the data from your dark night of the soul, from your eclipses, from what's happening inside of you right now. Get the data. Because that's part of the shift, and that's part of awareness, right? It's conscious choice, which is our whole thing around free will. Understand it yourself. What am I choosing in these moments? What am I consciously choosing? Even if it's like, I'm just going to take some deep breaths. I'm going to read about that. I'm going to listen to a podcast about it. Choose wisdom. Choose knowledge. Choose your way out of the eclipse, of the darkness. The darkness is there to tell us that there's also light. ¿Verdad? Right? There's also light. An eclipse means that there's light and dark. What are we choosing? What are we choosing? Positive, negative fraction. And the moment we decide to become aware and conscious, all of a sudden that fraction becomes 1/1. Choose your way out by deciding I'm going to be responsible for this. I'm going to take responsibility over my life. I am. We get that it's hard to do. Deep dives are hard to do. It gets easier, and I'm going to say a few more words about that. Choose your change. Choose your courage. Now, choosing courage is interesting because courage doesn't mean that we're not afraid. It means that we're going to do something even though we are afraid. We're going to be courageous. And courageousness is a high meditative state. It means that I am willing. I am willing to try something different than what I've done. And what if humanity says that? What if humanity says, I am willing to not be at war anymore? I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm not going to do war anymore. I'm not going to choose oppression anymore because we keep paying the price. We really do. We keep paying the price for not being aware of ourselves. So courageousness is part of this journey. And think of it like this, my loves. Just think of it as I am willing. I am just willing. So even if you just sit on the floor in your meditation and you open up your hearts and you say, I am willing. I am willing. You're already in a high meditative state, which is the state of courageousness. And Louise Hay used to say, I am willing to change. I am willing to change. I pick up the courage to change this pattern. 12 Steps talks about it all the time. And the courage to know the difference. This is everything. So instead of thinking of things as good or bad or using the eclipse as like something terrible is going to happen or something good's going to happen. Just think of it in a more neutral way, which is this in alignment with me or is this out of alignment with me? Does this fit me? Is this a match to me? That's all it is. It's much more neutral. Is this in alignment? Because when every single time we choose what is in alignment with us, and it has to be though, in our thinking, our feeling, our spirit, our psychology, and our body, it must feel right. In all of those categories, we immediately expand. We immediately evolve. We jump, right? As I said in the last episode, we're catapulted into evolution. And imagine if there's a group of us, which is what I want to do on this podcast. So many people, there's so many amazing podcasts out there. So amazing that are asking people to become aware and conscious so that we can gather people more and more and more humans so that we all move into 51%, so that we all move towards a world and we're creating a humanity that thrives, that lives, that isn't in extinction, that isn't killing ourselves. It's crazy, right? That isn't killing ourselves. We expand, we evolve, we become something higher. And let's see what happens then. We expand out of constantly living in fear. It is fear that creates trauma. It is self-hate that creates trauma. Right? A parent who self-hates is creating trauma in their home, whether it's by abuse, whether it's by their silence. It's endless. We don't need to talk about that today, but just know that that's what's creating it. If you're drinking a lot, if you're using a lot, if you're pornoing a lot, all of us, if we're eating a lot, my gosh, all of us, all of us as humans. There's no need to judge. We're all going through it. We all have done it. We have all found ways to escape. We have all self-hated. So now is the time to do a backflip out of it, to gather the momentum towards 51%. Remember, you agree, you give consent, and that creates the path of your life journey. So ask yourself, what am I voting for? What am I consenting for? And what I mean by what am I voting for, what do I vote for every time I focus on something? What am I voting for? Am I voting for violence? Am I voting for more trauma? How about this? This is the way it shows up in everyday life. Am I gossiping? Am I demeaning someone else to feel better about myself? Am I in such, check it out. Am I always anxious and always panicked so that my children, my spouse, my parents are constantly trying to save me? Or am I choosing to find therapy, meditation, medication if you need it? It's out there. It's out there for us. The books, the groups, the support groups, it's out there for us. We can heal. We can reach for higher vibrations. We can. Remember the basics of the inner journey becomes the outer journey. And the outer journey can impact our inner journey if we're not aligned. And I like to say, if we're not lighthousing on the inside. No matter, I always say, no matter the chaos, no matter the confusion that's going on, if we have our practices, if we have ways to be coming back to ourself, if we have groups and support, whatever is happening outside doesn't matter. So I'll give you an example of when one person is aligned is so much more powerful than 100 people who are misaligned, confused, and panicking. I remember in the 2008 economic market, I wanted to sell my house. And everyone kept saying the economy is bad, the economy is bad, the economy is bad. And I remember thinking back then, I don't need the economy. I need one person who really wants this house, who's aligned, where we agree, where we both give consent that they are the buyer and I'm the seller, and that they will buy at the price I want them. All I needed was one person. People tell me that there's no, let's say when some women tell me that there's no good men out there, you don't need all the men. You need one person who's aligned, one partner. Doesn't matter how you identify. The one partner who's aligned, who agrees with what you believe relationship is. Now, in order to give consent, in order to give aligned agreement, you have to know yourself. It starts with you. It starts with you. Me knowing that I don't want to participate in war. Which doesn't mean I don't get angry, that I don't have war vibration in me, that I don't want vengeance sometimes. Doesn't mean all of that. I am a CPTSD survivor. Sure. But in order to give my little granito de arena, my little grain of sand to humanity, I am going to start looking for other options other than war. In order for me to participate in my home, with my clients, in this planet, I want to start looking for other options other than war. What are some of the steps to handle the adversity that's hitting our planet and will hit our planet? So here's a new topic we're going into right now is how do we handle adversity, okay? And just keep writing down from our politics, from all of that's happening right now, is pre-pave it. Pre-pave the path you want. Let's say from here until September, which is where I'm really focused on. Pre-pave where you're going to decide to shift your gaze and hold your focus. Pre-pave it. There's a song in Spanish, there's a salsa song in Spanish that's called Periódico de Ayer, and it means yesterday's newspaper. Tu amor es un periódico de ayer. Your love is yesterday's newspaper. And what that means is, in this conversation, is that anything that is today, that we're seeing in the present today, anything that you're seeing is yesterday's newspaper. Anything that's already been manifested is yesterday, is what you prepaved, is what humanity prepaved. It's what our culture, our race, our ethnicity, our traditions prepaved is what's happening today. El periódico de ayer, yesterday's newspaper, which means that today, in this present moment, we can prepave what we want tomorrow's newspaper to be, what we want to see next, let's prepave. Let's prepave our finances, our psychology, our families, our homes, our love life, our political life. Let's prepave it today. Let's double down on that momentum. What do we want? Where are we going to hold our gaze? Where are we going to lock down on our focus of what we want personally, for others, and for the planet? Let's hold that gaze for heaven on earth. And you know I am holding it for heaven on earth. And my periódico, my current newspaper, is looking more and more like the heaven on earth that I dreamed about. Even though 2020 to 2024, the people who know me and love me, I went through a dark night of the soul. I already did the eclipse and I doubled down. I took all my deep dives on cord cutting, and a lot of light workers did, a lot of healers did. A lot of people who inspire. There were a lot of people on the planet Earth who used their dark night of the soul from 2020 to 2024 so that we could be here today, so that I could be in this podcast today and start to sort of people or show this way. You can choose whatever way you want, whatever resonates with you. Of course, you have conscious will. You can choose, but let's prepave. Let's align and prepave. We get to choose out of yesterday's newspaper. Whatever humanity has manifested until today, we get to choose out of it. What are we choosing? I'm scratching my eye. So funny how I get messages through my body as I'm saying that. Some of the choices are turn off some of the news that you're watching. I personally turn off all of it. I do get news through people. You do get the important things. So don't worry if you turn off the news. You do get the important things all the time. I started doing this in the early 90s. And the reason why I started turning off the news was because I was having panic attacks like crazy. And again, I did it organically. I did it because my body was telling me the news is making you so afraid of living. I was afraid of living in the 90s. I was in my 20s back then. I learned a lot. And one of the things that I just did organically was to turn off the news because I was just so anxious. It was really bad. I had phobias. I had panic attacks. So seek help. That's the other way. Seek support. Read, because you're going to get the call out. You're going to get the call out anyway. Planet Earth will get the call out. Shift your gaze. We know it's hard. But here's a spoiler alert. If you don't shift your gaze, if you continue to focus on fear and hate and, how about this? Let me back it up a little bit. In The Art of War, the book, The Art of War, these were war tactics, dividing and conquering. So the best way to beat the enemy was to divide people. Whether you came from the same town, race, political party. If families, because narcissists do that in their families, they divide the siblings, they divide them in order to conquer, because that then becomes a weakened group. This is an actual war tactic. You divide and conquer, and the other thing you do is fear mongering. You spread fear through news, scary events. You spread fear. And that is the way to become conquered. What if there's a whole group of us that decide to unite and not be divided and conquered? What if there's a whole part of humanity where we decide, oh no, we're not going to be divided and conquered. We're going to be allies and we're going to have a focus, and it's not going to be fear. Because if I submit and we as a group submit to fear, we will be conquered. We will be dominated not only by our own personal fear, but just by anyone else, by the bully, by the human bully. We will be conquered. So just think of it like that. We must consciously choose out of fear. It is an actual war strategy. This is the last segment before I give you some questions to ask yourself during this eclipse and during this time of pre-paving that I'm inviting you to. So let's come back. Let's do a full circle back to the eclipse and to darkness. Choose to realize that part of the eclipse and part of the dark night of the soul is that there is a morning. We do wake up to the dawn, to light coming through. There is light everywhere. There are lighthouses everywhere. There are people with light everywhere. There are programs with light. And you all know that this is my whole life mission, my beingness, is to find ways to shift our gaze, to become lighthouses for ourselves first and then for others. Where are you putting your gaze? What is your dominant vibration? How are you looking at your wounds as gifts? How are you doing that transmutation and transformation? Even if you're in the chrysalis of gooiness, know that that gooiness can lead to your rebirth and the rebirth of humanity and helping the planet. Even if you choose, let's say, how about this? If you choose to hold your gaze on politics or on the news or on what's happening, just ask yourself, what's my dominant vibration around it? What is my bottom fraction? Is it compassion? Is it innovation? Is it creativity? Am I going to find solutions to this? Am I going to find ways to bring some help to the planet Earth? Even if you decide to look at the problems at the shadow, even if you decide to look, ask yourself, what is my bottom fraction? What is my dominant vibration? Is it coming from a place of heart, of care, of compassion, love yourself? I'm telling you, I try and make these light, but it's the time, you guys, for us to double down, for us to just come together and hold our gaze together on what we are choosing. And let's just move it into 51% of a world that is thriving, of a world that is not just surviving, of a world that is not just beaten down by lack, beaten down by oppression, beaten down by war, beaten down. So we don't have the room to be creative and alive and vibrant and sensual and in love. We don't have the room for that. So let's just move it over here together. So I'm going to leave you with some questions. And these questions are from an intuitive teacher that I love. I follow her. Her name is Wendy DeRosa, and she talks a lot about empaths. And for this eclipse, she provided a list of questions that I absolutely love. So I'm going to share them with you. Again, I'm still learning from teachers. I listen to all sorts of podcasts from people who are 10 steps ahead of me. And then I try to lead people who I'm 10 steps ahead of. And you have people that you're one step ahead of. Who cares? We're one step ahead. We're one step ahead. And then we could just, braid each other's hair, pull each other, be together. But we're all walking single file together. Okay, here are your questions. You ready? You can pause this. You can write it down. What radical shifts need to happen in your mindset, in your perception, in your gaze of what you believe is possible? What do you believe is possible? Because the moment you believe that more is possible, you're expanding. Number 2, what have you needed? How have I needed to break down in order to break through? Like the chrysalis. How do I need to become goo to my pride, to my beliefs, to my old way of being, to my past identity? How do I need to break down to break through? Right? How have you managed chaos and destruction and endings and confusion? How have you managed that? Number 3, am I allowing change? Are you allowing change? Are you accepting spontaneous shifts? Because things are moving really fast. And remember, momentum gathers. So wherever you're allowing a shift, it's going to go. It's going to take off. So just really choose that shift. Number 4, what do you need to release to shift from feeling powerless? She writes to being a leader. I write to leading your life. And an empath leader, I talk about you becoming the sovereign of your life, you leading your life. And by doing that, you have the capacity and the ability and the expansion of leading others. Or you moving from powerlessness into leading your life, which is heaven on earth. We choose, we curate, we design our life. Number 5, am I willing to embrace the unfolding path without abandoning your soul, your intuition, the divine invisible? Are you? 6, there's 7 of these. So number 6, are you willing to release right now the bad habits, the addictions, the negative repetitive patterns that distract you from your own life and from your infinite potential? Are you willing to do that? To release those things with help? You're not doing this alone. There's a ton of support out there. What commitments will you make to that? What steps will you take to that? To finally release them. That's the only way we're going to move into 51%. To this side, to a thriving heaven on earth world. Number 7, what rebirth or renewal? What does a rebirth, listen. What does a rebirth or a renewal look like for you? On the Heaven on Earth podcast, we say for humanity and for planet Earth. These are really good questions for this eclipse, for this dark night of the soul. And I want to end by saying this light isn't anywhere else. It starts with you. Empieza contigo. It starts here. We have access. Okay, very good. Hello, eclipse. Bring it on. Bring on the eclipse. Bring on the light. And let's close like we always close, leaning back with 3 breaths. And this is the way that we come together. We bring coherence and congruence into our electromagnetic field. And whether you watch this right now or you watch it later, by just doing this with me and doing it with each other as an audience that listens together, we are coming into connectivity. Trust that. We are coming into alignment. So let's do it. And we breathe in together and out. And in and out. And in and out. And placing a hand on your face or on your body, gently come back. Thanks for joining me. And every time we do this podcast together, we are living in heaven on earth, because these are the concepts of heaven on earth. Thanks again. And please subscribe, share, spread the word. This is free. Spread the word. Subscribe. Write me something, because you know how that's how we send a kiss to the algorithms. So this takes off like wildfire, because that's what we want. We want planet Earth and humanity to move towards healing and thriving. Thank you so much.